What a great game. I mean, in terms of just its ability, the execution of this game. You can talk about video games and you can just say, oh, it looked really great and it controlled well. But what I like about this game and where it succeeds is that the looks of it contribute to the story and the gameplay at the same time. Like the animation of it. It is really beautifully animated, but the animation is very memorable because it gives a personality and a life to these characters that aren't speaking, that is fun to play with, and the physics of it are fun to play with, but it also lets them do, grotesque things, and it explains their personality just by action. There's so much this game shows you by the action, by the animation, by you actually playing it. Even that ending sequence, when you have the power and you walk out, it feels so great because you're pushing forward and you're not just holding up. You're looking at the people and you're snapping their necks. You're kind of moving at your own pace, and that's so much more powerful than just a pre-rendered cutscene that they have control over. Because I've just spent 4 hours yesterday struggling against those characters, losing and trying really hard and still failing. And at that point it was like, you don't even need to try and you can do it. But it's not just a cutscene doing it. It's so much more satisfying. But they still have the artistic expression because they're able to put they can put the camera where they want. They can move it and tell a visual story. You have to walk forward. They can still have so much control while still giving you control. It's a nice hybrid of the artistic expression of cinematography, but using game design and gameplay to actually tell a story. Whereas I think so many times in a game when it's just a cutscene, doesn't it kind of feel like a bit of a failure? Where the only way you were able to get this across is by taking complete control away from the player, and you have to show it. It's kind of like teaching somebody something or going, just let me do it. I'll do it. It'll be better. I mean, I think of games like, The Last of Us and Uncharted. Those do work pretty well with the story, with the cutscenes, and they do need to. I think you need to look at their faces because they convey so much in those games. And those games kind of operate under a basis of you're going to play a shitload of gameplay and then we're just going to give you a break and here's the cutscene. And there were a couple moments in this where I was used to that modern gaming rhythm of, I wouldn't mind a cutscene here. I'd be happy with it because I've played enough and I'd be able to just sit and relax with it. The DLC explains the gnomes. Yeah, Jorge, I finished everything but 30 minutes. But yesterday I was not ready to finish it. I was kind of tired. I've been playing for 4 hours. And I had a feeling the ending was going to be big and I wanted to talk about it. And I think I would have been exhausted by then. We would have been at like a 4.5, 5 hour mark at that point. Daryl, you prefer directors not to say if fan speculation's right or wrong. Let them have fun with the story. But Jorge debates the dangers when people start to like one fan theory more than others, then the devs have to make a choice. Now we're on some sort of lighthouse. Thank you for playing. So you can still control the camera slightly. Yep, you can make it go left and right. That's nice. Just a little bit of control. And this was the prequel to BioShock. Because your character is obviously vulnerable, constantly being attacked, trying to survive. You start off fighting little tiny creatures that grow to big human proportions and get fatter and fatter until you fight the boss at the end. And there's 3 or 4 times in the game where you have to eat, and once you eat bread that kids give you. And then when you get to the point where you eat a rat, you go, okay, so it's getting a little darker, but I guess they needed to survive. But that was also the thing where it was like the rat was trying to eat some food in a trap. You could have I was trying to free the rat, or we could have had the food the rat was after, and instead we ate the rat. And then when there's a gnome and they eat the gnome after you've been hugging them and trying to help them this whole time. But I think that because you bite the boss at the end, that is it was building to that. Little Nightmares. Well, the original title of the game was Hunger, and so much of that is there. I guess Little Nightmares is a bit more imaginative. Probably a better title than Hunger. Hunger makes it sound like you're playing a survival game or something. So everything was foreshadowed, which I like, because if you just, that was a big moment. Like, nobody wants to eat the gnome after we've been trying to save them the whole time. That felt gross. And it felt like it wasn't my choice. The maw appears to exist to fatten those passengers up, presumably to use them in some way as food or whatever. And they've gone so far away from what it is to be human by focusing on only one part of what it is to be human and to please yourself, and that short-term gain for long-term pain. Yeah, okay, so obviously they feed the kids to the people. But that's been done for so long. I mean, ever since Soylent Green is people. But I think that they did a good job of taking it one step further by having you bite the gnome. Bite the rat, bite the gnome, and then bite the boss is a really beautiful kind of 3-part way of handling that. You bite the rat and it's like, oh, well, I guess we had to do it. We don't like the rats. Yeah, but see, our character's never a glutton. They always just have one. They just have enough and then they move on, always. You'd think that if they got to the point where they had debilitating hunger, they would have eaten the whole loaf of bread, but they never do that. They always have one bite and stop. I tended to think of the passengers as sort of like first world people that are exploiting, and that the kids were like slave labor. And they were, that's kind of what I thought. Like, it wasn't just as simple as like eat food bad, more of, yeah, no, that actually feels like it makes more sense to me. Okay, maybe the geishas, like the big corporations. The first world, because, okay, you look at something like your cell phone. You can only really have a cell phone because somebody in a third world country has to risk their life, work dangerously in a mine. They're made in third world countries, so you can afford it. And so Apple can make a ridiculous profit over it. And Samsung. And we can buy them and we can afford them. And it's all exploitation, right? There's not like a mom and pop company making cell phones. So that's what I thought. I think that feels deeper for me than just being the very on the surface of eating a lot of food. It has to mean more than that. And that's what I think the kids are. The kids are this like powerless third world slave labor. And they're all being overseen by the big eye. And the big eye is like the Illuminati or the most powerful of us all that are watching these things. That no one else seems to really be aware about what the power of that eye. And they're sort of and all the big fat passengers are falling all over themselves. And also kind of the way that they're on a ship, signifying that they're going from, say, country to country around the world, right? So they're kind of using the world as their playground. Little Nightmare themes. Someone brought up the child becoming the monster they once feared. I like that. That's a nice little button on it. You fear something the entire game and then you become it as you grow older. Yeah, they become, and that was built from the beginning of from the way they went from eating bread like the other children to eating the rats. Because you never actually fight the rats or run away from the rats. The rats are just, I mean, they're gross, but they're there. They run away from you, and then you eat one when it's trapped. And then eating the gnome, and then eating the enemy. That's a good way to put it. Well, those are my thoughts on Little Nightmares. I will play the sequel. I think I need a couple day break from it, though.